A very happy afternoon, or maybe an early evening, depending on where you're watching from. It's LCO. We are starting our playoffs. It's day number one. Max and Skimmy here with me. Max, how are you? Playoffs. It's going to be a full week, by the way. It's going to be a
Yeah,
mega full week for us.
yeah, I know. We were just talking off air about how many hot beverages we've been bringing to soothe the vocal cords as we head throughout this week. But I'm keen. Look, the last couple of weeks, if they've set up anything, it's that this is an incredibly tight playoffs among the teams that we have in here. Not only is the top incredibly tight, but all teams 1 through 6 have shown, especially in that last day of games, that they can take a game off whoever. So I'm absolutely keen.
Yeah, there were a lot of movements. Even when we started looking at who might be our top 6 coming into playoffs, there was still a lot of that movement through the seeding. But Skim, I see you already have your tea there. How many beverages do you have in front of you?
I have like
today
4
alone?
different drinks on my table right now. We got the cold water, we got the tea, and then we got like a thermos with extra tea. We're locked in. Yeah, we're good to go.
Yeah, you're buckled in. You're not moving if you got the thermos ready and everything like that. You're going to be staying there. And you guys, make sure you keep watching because right now we're going to look at what happened last week to close out our regular split and the great best of twos that we had to close that out.
Final day of the regular season and a chance to see what these teams have been cooking up and what they want to really get some reps on stage with before they go into the playoffs. It's another first pick for Smolder. The fact that they want to say that Woodham's getting a little bit too big for his boots right now. We need to shut that down. Out goes the Ignite right off the bat there by Dragon as he tanks up this tower. Down comes the Dragon, in goes the kill. And King with a clutch devour. That's the center. They need more time. But time might not be afforded to them because that's the flash, tongue lash into the Achu as they lock down Styx. He's flashed. He's got into the shadows, but he gets absolutely destroyed by King's Mom. Temper Fate locking in multiple members through stasis, but that Fate's call buffers it, so Draco jumps back out. Warden perseveres, Syndra finds Swan, the Shockwave's massive onto 3, and that sets them up on a silver platter to say good night, sweet dreams.
There are Callista Spears in it. Can they steal it?
Temper Fate being burnt, that's going to buy them crucial time right now, but Wooden jumps across the pit into this one, looking to try and contest it, and they steal it! Invictus with the burn damages to Brand, and a 4v5!
I'll tell you, Natty, right now, the draft was a complete mistake. We messed up in draft, and even the coach was like, good luck, guys. It's going to be, this game is probably going to be super, super hard.
It burns that very quickly. Swiper is in the area, though.
They need to use that Temper Fate, sort of available right now, so the fight does begin, and there is even to try and run away with that mental journey, but the Baron is still being looked at right now, down to 3k, getting closer and closer to smite range, and it is going to be stolen away! What is Invictus? What is he doing? This man is unleashed, he wants that contract renewed! He wants to showcase that a rookie can really pop off.
Oh, he's drifting.
They still continue to fight. River, chill out. He's 4-0. This Yasuo is trying to do the Una reverse and not going 0-10, but 10-0 instead. Tomasino is in trouble. River's looking for it, but the ultimate comes out hunting for that last breath. And Shingy is the one to pick up the shot, and that's not where you want the goal to go.
Fantastic plays from last week and a phenomenal recap to go with it. We obviously saw those amazing Baron stills that happened for the side of Kangaroo. Did garner them 1 win, and it put them in a nice 6th spot there because of the head-to-head. But these were our regular season standings at the end of last week. We closed it out. Team Bliss coming in at 1. Antic, that 1 win was all they needed to be able to put themselves in 2nd, Ground Zero in 3rd, Ion in 4th. That's our upper bracket. Fury 5th, Kanga 6th. And it does unfortunately mean that Direwolves and Mammoth will be our 2 teams that are not making it to playoffs. So we got to see some monumental displays from them throughout the regular split, but it just was not enough for them, Skimmy, to be able to push them over that line and make it into playoffs.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, for the likes of Direwolves and Mammoth, they both had their fair share of misery, right, with Mammoth missing out on a full ban in that first rotation, which made it pretty rough for them. Playing at that draft phase, as for Direwolves, the postponement with a roster change and a lack of form that sort of culminated in us calling it the Katsuri show by the end of it. So, bit of a rough affair for them, but look, I think if we could go into Split 2 with another chance, maybe the standings could be a little bit different.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, there were the ups and downs. We do want to say and have a reflection, I guess, on some of the best moments from Mammoth as we do say goodbye to them. Not going to be able to see them play anymore this split, Mac, but what do you think was one standout moment about this team for you?
Look, I think this was a team that was very much plagued by roster issues. We saw a lot of kind of flexibility in the plays that they were bringing in week to week, and I think that they were eventually kind of starting to find their footing towards the end of the split, right? I mean, obviously only picking up 1 win out of 2 games against Direwolves and Kanga respectively, but I really think that this is a team with a little bit more time they can really show what they're made of. I think that Gudo, especially pairing with Dajong, was very good at kind of calling these engages and allowing his team to have a really easy time in team fights. I think that if we were able to see a bit more of that synergy develop, a bit more kind of experience, especially down towards the bot lane, we could have really seen some exciting things coming out of this squad.
Yeah, I feel like this team would have developed to potentially even be one of our more aggressive rosters, Skimmy. The fact of how they played when we saw them in their last day, in their last best of 2, I was like, wow, where has this roster been this whole time?
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, for the likes of Duck and Asta, I feel like they had a great showing for a rookie roster to showcase what they're about. I think Asta in particular showcasing the Lissandra was quite exciting. You know, Nectar to come back out and sort of demonstrate his prowess in that top lane with some carry performances on the Gwen, but I think it's very hard to look past the experience, definitely, of that mid-jungle pairing. And Dajong slotting in those last few weeks, just felt like it was a little bit too late for them to try and you know, pick up the pieces and scavenge, yeah, like a playoff spot.
Yeah, I mean, they were definitely trying to do what they could. And it was nice to be able to see Dajong come back into the LCO as well, even though it was towards the end and they had a monumental task ahead of them to try and make it there. It still was a lot of fun to watch them play. The other team that we're saying goodbye to and that we want to have a bit of a look at of their regular split is this Direwolves roster. So same sort of thing where they had quite a lot of issues for themselves, Max, throughout this regular season, and one week they were looking fantastic, but the consistency just wasn't there. We couldn't see the same Direwolves show up in the next week of the regular split.
And that's the thing, you can see here on your screen now, they were even contesting Antic in their series, right? Antic obviously a very good team coming into the playoffs here, but it really was those consistency issues, and they did start to kind of find their footing with their first 2-0 in the last week. But like Skimmy said, if you're finding your form then, after the point where you can really contest for a playoff spot, it's really not the time you can be doing it. So hopefully, you know, with a lot of time in this off-season to prepare and scrim, especially with Katsuri at the helm, I'm sure that under his leadership, they can really go far.
Yeah, what was one of your biggest highlights, Skimmy, about this team and this roster? Because I know that they also had a small change throughout this split too.
Yeah, I know it's going to be a very redundant or sort of, you know, over-mentioned point, but definitely for me, it has to be Katsuri, right? He showcased a bit of a 1v9 performance, especially when that Lucian got into his hands. Very hard to contest him. I think for the likes of Emphis and Lisa, didn't really get a chance to truly find their form. Emphis, obviously on his pocket picks and his best champions, was a different caliber player. Obviously on this LeBlanc here, he's absolutely beast moding at 1v9. But at times it was hard for him to try and really exert any kind of pressure on these control mages like that Orianna or like the Syndra in that you know, traditional 1v1 matchup. But I think, yeah, for the likes of Lisa, obviously so much experience in his back pocket, played a different champion every single game, gave us a bit of a flexibility, like it's a Jax jungle, it's a Nocturne, it's a Graves, it's a Sejuani, what is it going to be today? But I don't think he really got to play his game as much as he would have wanted to. A lot more trying to adhere to his solo lanes in particular and try and bail them out of some pretty dire situations.
Wasn't that replay or like the last few highlights when he got that Lucian? That was when he was saying that Shinky didn't have
He had no comms. He was texting or typing.
And so they were typing. Lucian Nami, they were typing as their way of comms throughout that whole game. I think even maybe the whole series. So and the fact that we're seeing those highlights and a lot of great plays when they're able to do that, I look forward when maybe everything finally comes together for this Direwolves roster if they are to continue that way when we do come to the next split. But we aren't done with split 1. Obviously, we are finished with our regular split, but it does mean that our playoffs is ready and our bracket has shaped up to look this way. Our top 4 teams, we already said it, Bliss, Ground Zero, Ion, and it does mean that Bliss and Ion 1 and 4 will be going head to head as our first playoffs best of 3 here today. They will then be followed by Antic up against Ground Zero's second and third right there in another best of 3. And then tomorrow, we're going to be moving down to that lower bracket where Fury will be coming up against the loser of our first series today, and Kanga will be coming up against the loser of our second series today. And as you look down the rest of this bracket, you will see the times for our other lower bracket match. That one's on Wednesday, another best of 3. Then we shift to best of 5s with an upper bracket final on Thursday, and then another best of 5 on Friday for the lower bracket final, because they are going to be our 2 matches, our 2 series that decide who is going to PCS, Max.
Yeah, it will be. And for the teams that start in the upper bracket, it's only a total of 5 wins that you need to secure a spot to PCS thanks to that upper bracket final. So I'm sure this is something the likes of Team Bliss, Antic, Ground Zero, and Ion will all be contesting hotly for. But like you said, I think every series today here kind of has the potential to be really exciting. I think Team Bliss versus Ion Obviously a bit more of a disparity in the standings, but Antic at Ground Zero, you know, in their regular season meetings, yes, there was that 2-0 between them, but I think it was a lot closer than that score shows, and I'm really excited to see how they're matching up today.
And I like that we have that upper bracket as well. I think that's going to get a lot of nerves out for any of these teams, although some of them probably aren't going to need that little bit of a warm-up for themselves, as our talent playoffs predictions, we've all put Bliss here, all three of us. But the little change-up is, Skimmy and I have gone for Antic as second and Ground Zero as third. But Max, you believe Ground Zero are going to be able to take that second coveted spot to PCS?
I really do. I think that Ground Zero versus Antic, I think that, I literally mentioned it before, they did lose 2-0 in their last meeting, right? So they have that going for them. But I think in recent weeks, the form has really been favoring Ground Zero. Antic obviously coming off a loss in their previous series versus Kanga, which I think really could have shaken the team morale. Whereas Ground Zero, they were kind of talking about it from Schönfire. We heard that the team was peaking. And that's always a great thing to hear when you're coming into playoffs, especially up against your opponent there. Securing yourself in that upper bracket early on, I have really high hopes for this team.
Yeah, I will say that was probably the tougher one for me of where I was going to place second, but we've all also gone for someone different. So I want to hear from you very quickly, Skimmy, why you thought Ion was going to be able to at least secure top 4 for themselves or that 4th spot.
I've just been really impressed by their debut split, quite honestly. They've looked like the best of the rest when you've seen, obviously, a very clear top 3, which is what we've all unanimously gone for. Not seen that budge too much, but I think outside of that one, I just feel like Ion have had a little bit more to add in terms of spice and creativity and deliverance in those games against some of the bigger teams. So I think as long as tonight goes promisingly, then I'm going to stick by those predictions.
Yeah. All right, well then let's add a little bit more spice to our broadcast, not just about the games, because we went ahead and we asked some of our I mean, they're still current players, but no longer playing in LCO Split 1 is, we have a member from Direwolves and one from Kanga as well, and we asked them about what they thought tonight's games are going to shape up to be. So, Katsuri, we asked him about Team Bliss and Ion. He said 2-0 to Team Bliss. Bliss is more well-rounded. Ion have a champion pool issue, so drafting against them on the side of Bliss should be really easy. The Ion bot lane is on the stronger side, but they have to lane against Violet and Scott. Max, that's I'm not going to say a bold prediction, but a pretty good analysis, I would say, of what the flaws and the strengths of both those two teams are.
I think he read it absolutely perfectly. Obviously, Katsuri is a very smart man, but I think it really is those solo lanes that's kind of going to be the issue. I think that Ion's biggest strengths have been how dominant and how kind of risky their champion picks have been in those solo lanes. Right? We've seen Draymond whip out an Aurelia, because why not? We see that again tonight, right? Perhaps against BioPanther, you're not going to have an easier time. This guy is very proficient at punishing picks, and if you're not playing absolutely 100% perfect on these, it's just going to be a complete landslide.
Yeah, we all know how deep BioPanther's champion pool is for himself too. The other player that we did get in contact with was Shinky. He's also gone for the 2-0 for Bliss in this matchup. So like I said, that prediction probably isn't the bold part, but he says Bliss just plays better macro and has better understanding to the game, therefore will gap in all roles. In every single role, Skimmy, every role, that's his bold claim.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's too far from the truth in that regard, right? Obviously, you've got Harry that's showcased that he's come back from NA. He's going to absolutely smash it. Hasn't been challenged too much, in particular in the mid lane. Yes, a handful of individuals have definitely given him a good test of form. But as you've already mentioned, right, BioPanther's going to have an absolute field day. Why not just going to go crazy with it? And I think in that bot lane in particular, whilst we sung the praises of the likes of Nebula, I think it's a different beast in terms of Violet, who's like the lane bully. So very hard for them to try and find a way to not fall behind in those first 15.
Yeah, I think it's also a bit of a shift that you're going into a best of 3, so you have to be okay that if game 1 doesn't go your way, there is still that chance of game 2 and game 3. It's not all just lost in that game 1, so you got to have a lot of fighting spirit as well when you turn to a best of 3. The second best of 3 that we have today is Antic up against Ground Zero. So we also heard from Katsuri and Shinky about this matchup too. So Katsuri giving us a bit of a dissertation. He's gone a 2-1 towards Ground Zero, so he thinks that second series is going to be a little bit closer. He predicts that Ground Zero and Antic to be a very close game. Antic only barely beat them earlier in the split, but Ground Zero was ahead most of the time. Ground Zero need to shut down Ryoma's pool and make it hard for him to carry, as this guy is literally the clutch factor for that team. Is it pretty much just all on Ryoma's shoulders then, Max?
I'm just going to say Katsuri, I love this guy. He's basically
Get on broadcast.
I don't want to leak my predictions, but he's done a very similar job. And I think, to your question, Ryoma is absolutely the biggest, I would say, player to watch in this game, right? We've seen he can either be the make or break, more often the make for Antic when he's on something like an Azir pumping out incredible damage numbers. Kisei I've always kind of viewed as the second coming of Ryoma in the sense that he's willing to be that very aggressive player. So I'm super keen to see how they match up in that extended series.
Yeah, well, I don't know if these two talked beforehand, but they've gone for the same prediction. So 2-1 towards ground zero again for Shinky here. Reasonings are Swiper is not playing the best right now, therefore Fire will have a big advantage in the jungle. But if they can fix that problem, it will be a close series as I think both teams can take the win. I mean, it's a massive shift for Swiper heading into the jungle, so I get it. The first time that they matched off, there was Swiper coming into that role for himself. But Skimmy, do you think it is as plain and simple as that? A jungle gap yet again, that it's something that it's kind of Swiper that might be dragging a little bit for Antic?
I mean, I certainly thought so when they first met, but quite honestly in that series it was actually Swiper gapping Shern, so I feel like when they've had enough time now to try and go from that first meeting all the way to playoffs, it should reverse and it should be as you'd expect. But yeah, I kind of view this one as Granzu being the early game team, Antic being a late game team. So if Granzu don't develop enough of a lead, then Antic are just there to catch it and sort of out team fight you.
Well, I mean, if you get a lead, you got to make sure you can hold on to it. But we don't have too much more time. In fact, we're going to head to a very quick break. And when we do come back, our playoffs journey will start with Team Bliss against Ion.
He's after becomes the Varus. Full stand on the stopwatch. It's carnage. They're all charged at his command. Oh, kaboom! It's do or die.
We're starting in the upper bracket. Bliss, our team number 1, coming up against Ion, our team number 4. So let's take a look at the rosters. I mean, there's been no change up for Bliss throughout this split, so why would they make any changes now as we're heading into best of 3 territory? And Skim's going to give us the full rundown of the potential for this team.
Well, yeah, as you say, Nat, the first seed, and rightfully so, only dropping a single game, finishing, what, 13-1. It's a pretty remarkable record at just that. They've come off a massive win streak into the playoffs and be looking to showcase that, hey, there's a lot more left to try and showcase here. I mean, they've given us a taste of a few flexible picks and a little bit of creativity, certainly in the jungle and top, I would say, the most. But I'm curious to see exactly how they try and approach this one tonight, because as far as early game things go, they have been the kings of that.
Yeah, and Ion, they were off to a strong start in week 1 and 2, Max, but from then it sort of faltered a little bit, and some of their weaknesses were exposed about this team.
Yeah, they've slowed down a little bit, but I think they've stuck to their guns in terms of style, and the thing that really stands out to me are their solo lanes, right? Doraemon and Jovi both having these unique picks up their sleeves. They're willing to bust out at really any occasion and just throw that extra spanner into the works for draft, which especially coming into a long playoffs run is something that's invaluable. I think as well, Foreigner has been key to this team in terms of holding everything down, being that glue that really sticks the team together, whether he's playing something like a carry, like the Brand, to try to get himself ahead, or whether he's playing an engage like this Java Nocturne and really facilitating for his team. Either way, he seems incredibly versatile, and there's a lot of avenues that this team can take to win games.
The last time they versed each other, week 4, that was almost 3 weeks ago, Skimmy. And in this matchup, kind of describe it to me. You know, give me a quick summarization of how this series did play out for both sides.
Well, really it was all the carries just absolutely gapping. I mean, you had the likes of Biopanther going deathless in that series, 12-0. You had a Harry with a 23 KDA. So certainly your carries are doing exactly what you need to. And I think that's quite remarkable because you can see from this clip here that Jovi is incredibly aggressive, will play from ahead no matter what his KD looks like. And I think a team like Bliss that are as well orchestrated and well drilled as then know how to sort of capitalize and punish on those tendencies. Same could be said for bot lane too, right? We've already talked about how impressive the bot lane of both Nebula and Hexflash has been. They've certainly shown some quirky picks at the best of times, but it's not to say that the likes of Violet and Scott aren't afraid to open that can of worms as well. So that's why I struggle to try and find a way for Iron to try and overcome this massive hurdle, because yeah, you can say, sure, 1st and 4th seed, it should be a little bit closer in that regard, but I think if they try and get a little bit spicy, Iron, I think there's just enough champion depth in all these players because they've played the game long enough for them to answer and not get bamboozled.
Yeah, we've talked about, quirky champion picks, that pool issue. And when we look at that teams, well, the 2 teams that went up against each other in week 4 to now Max, different patch, maybe a little bit of growth as well. Is that something that's easy to overcome in this short span of 2 and a bit weeks?
Not at all. I think Ion is definitely facing an uphill battle here. I think, like Jimmy said, they're really restricted on where they can actually look to win games, right? Because Nebula, who has been so aggressive and has looked fantastic, he's going up against Violet. Same in every single lane, right? These are the top 3 people. Biopanther, Hayri, and Violet have the 3 highest KDAs in the league, and that's who you're trying to play against and win against to actually be able to win games. So I think that, whilst they have shown this growth, and yes, they're a fantastic team in their debut split, to come in that 4th spot, it's still a lot of work to go.
Yeah, we talk about the uphill battle that you're going to have to face, and in the top lane, it's going to be a massive one. It's going to be up against Biopanther, and we're going to bring him in. We're going to have a bit of a chat to him right now. Bio, how are you?
I'm feeling really good. Like, I feel really confident for the game, coming up, so.
Yeah. How's the change from going to best of 2 to best of 3 for you? Is there much of one, or are you just going to be like, hey, let's go in, let's 2-0, let's keep it best of 2 territory?
Oh, the longer it is, the better it is for me. I'm very comfortable having the series really long. I just have a really good condition when it comes to long games. So I just think this is my power spike, so I should be able to show off my real skill. So yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about where we think some of your strengths are coming into this series, but I want to hear from you personally what you think your strengths in the top lane are, but also you guys just over at Team Bliss when it comes to coming up against a team like Ion.
I think we just have universally just good picks into them. I think their mid and top lane are their best players, so we kind of just have to shut that down or just hold our own, and the game should be easy. But I just think all around our team is very diverse and we're able to pick a lot of stuff, so that's what gives us the advantage for today.
Yeah. All right, I like that. I look forward to it. Max, you want to jump in here?
Yeah. Hey, Brandon. Good luck for today, first of all. Speaking of picking anything, you obviously have the biggest champion ocean in the world, but Doraemon is trying to catch you up there in the top lane. He's busted out some fancy stuff like the Aurelia.
Yeah.
I know in previous interviews you've kind of said just pick Udyr and you win. What's the approach heading into today in that top lane?
Well, I do expect Cassante to be banned. So that's what I mean. If you look at my games, I'm literally just a Cassante one trick. So if it's not banned, I'll be picking it. So that's just how it is. But I think today, I think teams are just realizing that I'm just picking the same picks over and over. So if you're gonna give it to me, I'll win all the games. But at least make the games interesting, so you can see my more champion pool. But I just think right now the top lane meta is so boring. So I just think that unless you're banning the stuff, I'm picking the same stuff.
Well, I hope we can see some new stuff from you today.
Yeah. Thank you.
And Skim?
Yeah, obviously, good luck for tonight. I just wanted to ask in terms of what makes this playoff so special for you. You've obviously won 3 LCO titles in the last 2 years, and obviously you're famously quoted for saying playoffs is when I win. So what is it about playoffs that makes it so, I guess, not easy, but so calm for yourself to approach it? Because other teams and other players might get in their heads a little bit more, right, and say, oh, it's playoffs, the nerves are there, the best of 3s, the best of 5s, and the end goal being to try and represent the region.
Yeah, I'm just playing towards just on stage. That's what I mean. Is right now, this is for me, not where I like to play. Just the thought of playing on stage with the fans and the crowd, I think that just powers me up and just motivates me more to win it all and represent us at PCS. So I just think that idea of making it further and doing the best we can as O's is my goal.
Beautiful.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
Bio, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks
Good
so
luck
much.
today. Even though, you have no one in your room maybe cheering for you, there are a lot of fans out there cheering for you guys today. So thanks for joining
Thank you
us.
so much. Thank you.
We all just want something new, I feel, in champion picks. And Bio's like, hey, I hate to be the Debbie Downer, the party pooper here, but I know it's broken, and even if it's stale, I'm still just going to pick it over and over again, Max.
He just wants to win. That's the thing about Brandon is it's winning above everything. He doesn't care about if he's winning lane, if he gets to play something fun. He will slam Kasance. Like you said, he said himself, he will just pick Kasance and he will win.
Yeah, the Kasante mule, it's just like, oh, insta-lock it. If it's not banned, insta-lock it. Do you feel then that, like, the priority for Bio in terms of pick order could go, like, significantly further down, whether they're blue side or red side, Skim?
I don't really think so. I think they're not going to be too deterred by what side they play on. I know against the higher ranked teams, they certainly lean more towards red side to value that cannon pick, but I think it's certainly seen in the last couple of weeks where the lower end teams are looking to try and value the red side more now to try and give themselves that edge. And I think certainly is what I would expect as Iron come into this one, valuing the red side more, and then we would expect to see somebody like Doraemon say, okay, yes, I want to try and really throw you a curveball, because I don't think they beat them if they try and play standard.
Okay, all right. It's just very funny because we're like, oh, maybe going too out, like, too left field could be the downside of Ion, but at the same time, like, that's almost your advantage is the fact that you can go very left field and is going to be the thing that catches them off guard. So we'll see what the balance is that they strike up here on the side of Bliss and on the side of Ion. But any other strengths that stick out to you, Max, for Ion if they are hoping to put up a really good fight?
I touched on versatility before. I'd love to see something out of the jungle role. I think that's really where Bliss has kind of flourished, is through enabling Why Not, because often, he will just have winning solo lanes because he's playing with Fire Panther and Hayri, and then he really gets to just have fun in the enemy jungle. I'd love to see Foreigner on a pick where he can perhaps contest that. Obviously, the brand, he had a good showing in the loss, right? Even on that champion, still able to provide decent damage in team fights and kind of act as that pseudo carry. So I think being able to default to that kind of play style in the sense that, okay, we're not relying on our solo laners here, but perhaps we can empower Foreigner, perhaps we can unlock him. That could be an avenue to kind of catch them off guard. That being said though, it's Bliss. Like, how do you actually catch them off guard? It's a really wishful thinking, but hopefully they can make that wish come true.
Yeah, we've seen crazy things happen before. Right now, though, we are going to jump into our second interview. It's also going to be the top laner, but it's going to be on the side of Ion. So Doraemon, how are you feeling? It's this change of a best of 2 into a best of 3, and you guys are going to have to play up against Bliss now.
I'm feeling pretty good. Ready to destroy this Violet guy. I'm gonna expose him today.
Yeah, I was going to touch on it a little bit, Is there that extra bit of sweetness of, a victory or a loss over the fact that it is going to be your brother on the other side?
I don't know. We won't be brothers until one of us wins, We're just gonna be rivals on the rest.
I like it. Push it off to the side. What's going to be a really big difference to the last time you guys faced up? Like, what's a big change, whether it's within communications or whatnot over on Ion that will lead to a potential win today?
I think, we figured out we have nothing to lose. So we're just going to play with confidence and try and gap, maybe we'll win.
I like it. Skimmy, if you have a question.
Yeah, well, the focus I sort of want to ask you was, how does the team want to try and approach draft? Is it all about laning phase, or is it much more about looking to try and scale into the late game? I know it's been a bit of an O's curse where if you don't win the laning phase, it feels a little bit doomed. So is it a case of looking to try and be as aggressive as you can in the laning phase to almost play around yourself and Joby that look to try and always be so aggressive?
No, I think laning is alright, but we're trying to focus on skirmishing and team fighting because that's when Team Bliss always gaps us, setup as well, objective setup. Yeah, laning isn't like too much of an issue. It's just
okay.
The team fighting.
Yeah, perfect.
Max?
Now, last time, Doraemon, we spoke to you before a Team Bliss matchup, you'd said that Violet had said absolutely nothing to you ahead of the game, right? Just stone cold silence. Have there been words exchanged prior to this series?
Yeah, he asked me today if I'm ready to lose, and obviously he doesn't know what's gonna happen to him.
Okay.
I do want to just one very quick question before we let you go, Doraemon. But do you feel that there is like a massive gap between you and Bio in top lane, whether for him or for you?
Yeah, he's definitely better than me, but today I'll gap this guy.
I was gonna say I need the confidence, Doraemon. Thank you so much for joining us, and good luck today.
Thanks.
See ya.
Bro, you cannot come into a playoff series and be like, yeah, that dude's better than me. They're just losing 2-0. Like, no way you said that.
I wanted him to like pretend as if he was trash talking his brother, you know, but you just like insert Bio's name instead and be like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. I'm gonna absolutely gap Bio. I hope there is at least a little bit of shred for Doraemon. He's put up some great performances throughout the split, so Bio might have the veterancy on his side. You know, long running, has been playing professionally for so long, but Doraemon, it's not always about how long you've been playing to be able to put up a good show. And these two teams, the last time they showed up and went against each other, it was that 2-0-4 Bliss. Game 1, Game 2. This is all of the stats and results that we have from that matchup, Skimmy.
Yeah, and as you heard from Bio's interview, right, he mentioned about the Cassante being a must ban, or at least it's going to be denied in this series. You can see that both times. It was actually Doraemon that locked that one in. Wasn't really given a chance to try and go for that cannon pick, as opposed to Bio that had the freedom to really do as he pleased. He went for the Udyang one, the Aatrox in the other, and I'm quite curious to sort of see where the direction does go, if we are going to get those crazy picks like the Aurelia or perhaps even a Twisted Fate in that top lane. But across the board, you can see it was a very dominant performance from the side of Bliss, right? I mentioned already during their replays, Bio went deathless in that series, but the likes of both Harry and Violet only having 3 deaths between them. It's promising signs. I mean, if you look at both the teams in comparison, clear direction that Doraemon would be a major carry threat for them as opposed to Bio in that regard. But if you look at the statistics overall, it does very much feel like Bliss are in peak form right now. But certainly, Max, I would say that Iron, based on a lot of these stats here, be it 4th or 5th, I'll make it a case that they are the best of the rest.
Yeah, certainly looking to be that. I think that their damage stats as well kind of paint the perfect picture about what we've been saying about this team. It really is about those solo lanes compared to Team Bliss, who are that kind of more quintessential, let's focus on our AD carrier mid laner and getting them ahead today. So, look, I think that last matchup is definitely something Iron are looking to avoid. I think they had some good moments, especially in Game 1. They were able to find some decent team fights, but after that, they weren't really able to find anything else. So, hopefully they've gone back, really reviewed that fight, what went well for them, and they can translate that into objective fights today.
Yeah, we quickly had to jump up there on screen. Bliss did pick blue side for themselves, so not too sure how much that changed compared to the last time that they faced off, but it's only a Game 1 side select because it all depends on who ends up losing the game as to what they pick for game number 2. We also have a Discord. If you guys want to join it, !Discord, and we are doing fan votes in there as well as our Twitch predictions. So jump into our Discord, be a part of that one, be a part of all of the action that is going on there. In fact, a lot of you guys are probably already there from the community night that we had on Friday. I'm sure you had a lot of fun, but you can use your Twitch channel points. It's up there on your right-hand side above Max. You can put all of your channel points on either...
Did I get it?
Yes. Kind of. I'm going to say that was a yes. On Bliss or Ion. In fact, we're going to show you guys what our predictions have been. And maybe it's not going to change up too much from what we heard from Katsuri and Shinky at today's start. We all have gone for that 2-0 here for Bliss. Is there any chance, give me, any chance that you see it going at least to a game number 3 between these two teams? I
would say... How lenient do I would? I'm going to say like 80-20. I'll give them a bit of a benefit of the doubt here.
That's good.
Yeah, 80-20. I say there's definitely a world in which Iron can cause an upset. I think what really hurt for them is that strength of schedule in the regular season when they went up against the big 3 teams back to back to back. I think they really depleted their confidence a fair bit. Certainly, it's going to make you second guess and question if the prep and the practice and the drafts and the champs and all the rest of it are working. But you heard it obviously from Doraemon in particular, right? It's a case of laning seems to be sweet, but it's the setting up. And I think that's certainly one of the advantages that a lot of these better teams have is they've got the experience, they've got their veterancy behind them. They know how to set up lanes, macro, be it the objectives and all the rest. So 20%, I'll stick with that, Nat.
Hey, I like it. Even if it is an arbitrary number, I love that you went with it for me there, Skimmy. And maybe something that can help them in those team setups, in the team fight later throughout this game is that draft. So we'll see what champions they're going to pick up for themselves as game number 1 champ select is ready.
Let's jump into it, Max. It's time. Finally, those best of 3s are upon us. We get a chance to actually get some definitive answers to which team is better, and how much depth do they have to try and flex it between games 1 and 2?
And look at that there, Skimmy. Smolder's actually going to be taken away in the first rotation here. So already we can see some kind of deviation away from the norm, which has been that Varus getting banned, the Kalista getting taken away early on. Both of those champions still going to be on the table for the AD carry role, but Bliss are going to default to this Orianna, who Hayri has shown in laning phase. He's an absolute menace, making it very hard to even play under your own turret, and especially pairing something with Why Not from the jungle. If he's picking a Jarvan, a Lee Sin, a Xin just really empowers those aggressive melee picks to really create a scary mid-jungle combo.
Yeah, as you say, certainly the last few games we've seen it paired alongside the likes of Viego as well as the Kindred, and it really has been Why Not looking to try and steal the spotlight away from his mid laner. Whether or not that's going to be the case here today, I guess, is up for debate, as we do have a lobby drop, so we'll jump back into that one and continue the conversation in a second. But it's interesting, right, how the approach is going to be for this matchup, because I know that both himself and Jovi have shown that they want to play this Orianna, and the Orianna usually has had the laning advantage by just being so aggressive and bullying out the likes of an Azir. So I'm curious how Jovi wants to approach this. Does he go for the Azir matchup and to say, this is what it is? Or, I mean, there's a part of me that wants to see him just absolutely send it and give us that Akali, or, you know, give us that Yone.
Yeah, look, I'd love to see that, and Ion is definitely a team that I think would be very open to playing something like a Sejuani plus 2 melee solo lanes and really going all in on this kind of topside brawling combo. We've seen it find success in the past, right, when they have picked these melee solo laners and really enabled them to get going in the active lanes. Now, the Orianna lane phase is something really important. I'm glad you brought it up, because that is something where Hayri and Bliss have kind of just started to steamroll. And we've seen from Bliss in so many of their games that once they get a lead, they're so efficient at translating it. And Hayri in particular is so good at playing safe that he doesn't really give these leads over. So it's definitely going to be something to monitor as we progress throughout this game. You know, whether they do handshake that in the mid lane, whether they do just want to pick another scaling mage and just go for the easy option, or they want to kill it with something like that Akali in the mid lane. Jovi, he can play whatever. He really can. He does have the flexibility to go whatever route he chooses, and it really will kind of dictate how the series and how the draft progresses, because game 1 really does set the precedent. If they're going completely ham in this game 1, saying it's all about getting those solo kills in lane, and they manage to find that, it can really flip the table on what we were expecting the narrative to be for this series.
It certainly can. It can, as you say, set the tone and get yourself a little bit of early momentum, clear out those jitters. Because we heard from the rookies, right, when you make that debut, the first 5-10 minutes, you certainly do have a fair bit of anxiety coursing through your veins, but then you start to ease your way into it and realize it is just another game. You've played it countless times, thousands of times perhaps, over the years through solo queue. And you're just doing it now with a case of many people watching you online. But if you can block out that background noise, you can certainly get yourself in that position to pop off. I think the thing for me that's going to be the most curious, you heard it from Doraemon saying, look, we're not going to be too afraid by who we're up against, is those level 1s. We saw them a handful of times. I want to say most in particular from the side of Swiper and Antic. But I'm curious to see, you know, if Iron were to look to try and, you know, drop the gambit and say, hey, let's go for a very aggressive comp. Let's try and invade them level 1 and, you know, put somebody like Why Not behind.
I mean, they've played the Kalista Renata before, right? That's probably one of the strongest level 1 combos you can have in terms of fishing for an invade. You have seen, like you said, Antic's bot lane, when they're playing that duo, just kind of stand in the bot side brush and just basically never let the enemy bot lane get into the lane. So I would love to see something like that. I think that's a really nice way to destabilize the game, especially because we've talked about going standard against a team like Bliss is likely not the way to go. I mean, yes, you can find a team fight here and there, but really League of Legends is not a game that's won based on a single team fight unless it's happening in 50 minutes. So I think that Ion here, they do have to pull out something non-standard, whether that be through the draft, whether that be through, you know, the way that they're adopting, trying to play this game. I do really wonder about Doraemon here. Obviously, coming on this red side as well, there is always the opportunity for him to pick up that 5th pick. But we have also seen that Biopanther is very willing to kind of give away his draft nice and early. So it may be a case where you don't even have to use it that early, and you can save that 5p for something like a jungle, something like a foreigner pick, and really kind of put the pressure on Why Not, who so far has been able to flourish in this kind of unprotected, just easy jungle role.
Yeah, and you raised the point before as we're looking to try and, you know, deep dive into the series and figure out, you know, where the parts for Iron could be for them to try and attack. And I think Foreigner certainly is my catalyst to their success, right? I think he's looked definitely his best on the likes of, you know, the Maokai, the Jarvan, the Nocturne. There's going to be ease of avenues or ease of access champions that get the job done. And I think they really offer one, CC, early tempo as well. And You know, I wouldn't be too afraid of him to even pick up something like a Sejuani, perhaps, where you are just looking to say, my solo laners are the primary focus. If I can get them ahead, then I can live in luxury. And certainly we saw him play the Jarvan the other week, right? And it was a case of him going 6-0, and you're thinking, hang on a minute, this Jarvan's a little bit too fed. But at the end of the day, if it is an early game jungle, if you do put the pressure on, you're not going to mind that too much.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the approach they want to take. I think that ease of execution is the #1 thing for rookie teams coming into playoffs, right? We've seen so many teams come into these playoffs. They've had a good scrim week, perhaps playing these harder to execute comps, and then you just come into playoffs where the nerves kick in, the stage, they kind of get dragged out because games are longer, because people aren't wanting to take as many risks, especially in the early stages of the playoffs. So I think having an easy go button like that Jarvan, like you said, or even a Sejuani to pair up with the solo laners is a fantastic idea. I think the easier you can make it, kind of overcome those confidence hurdles, because that is really something that Ion, they have been plagued with in these recent weeks. You mentioned it, that back-to-back-to-back of playing against the top teams really does things to your mental. We've heard it from Nebula. He wasn't feeling confident. Doraemon today saying, you know what, Panther's just a better player. That really isn't the mindset you can have if you want to come out and be aggressive. So, you know, take it back to basics. Pick something you're comfortable on and ease your way back into the game. Get your groove on and then play with nameplates off.
Well, that's exactly right. And I think a common condition of a lot of these players, right, is looking to try and show maybe a little bit too much respect to their opposition and say, look at this guy, he's obviously been around the scene for such a long time, gone on to achieve phenomenal things, be it going to Worlds, MSI, or even going to the most recent events, be it PCS playoffs. And I think whilst you can certainly show that degree of respect, at the same time you've got to prove that, hey, you're here and actually playing alongside them and sort of warrant your position. And certainly for a team as young as them to come in for their very first split and to get an upper bracket top 4 position or placement is quite remarkable. I think you need to certainly give yourself a pat on the back and realize that you know, the divide isn't as great as you may want to be believing as we still wait for this lobby to get ourselves back into the fold of things. But I think as you touched on there for Nebula, I'm not expecting too much craziness from him. He certainly looked to try and stick to those conventional AD carries. As for Violet though, I think there is still a lot left to be seen from him. He gave us a taste of the AP with the Ziggs, which was definitely one that caught us off guard. So obviously we saw Smolder was banned away, but I wouldn't be too surprised if he was to look to try and, if needed anyway, because I'm sure it is a part of him that wants to try and conceal as many of these strategies as possible. But if it came to it, I wouldn't be too surprised him to try and really make sure that that bot lane is a winning one.
And one on a TF, right? That's a champion we've seen be very prevalent on 14.3. I certainly know that Bliss, out of all the teams who could flex that pick into multiple roles, they're definitely one of them to be able to do that as well. So I think that that bot lane of Team Bliss, very flexible. We've obviously seen Scott without the Hui support, just for fun, kind of allowing that poke to really come into effect in that bot lane. So there certainly is a lot of drafting room that they have created for themselves. And in game one, like you mentioned, it really does become about how much do you actually want to show, especially because Bliss are so heavily favored in this matchup, right? There's not really too many expectations that they will be really significantly pressured in this series. So do they just play standard? Do they just whip out things that they've played before, they've shown on stage previously, and kind of conceal things for those later games? Whereas, you know, against a series later on today, like Ground Zero and Antic, that's going to be really competitive in terms of whipping out these champions that we possibly haven't seen before. But as we wait for the lobby remake, I feel like we've kind of jinxed us.
We
right
did.
To the broadcast, Gimme. We were talking about the fact that the LCK had a 7-hour, essentially, best of 3. Hopefully we won't be anything like that here in game one. But, you know, if we're getting this out of the way before the game even starts, I won't be mad about that.
Well, look, I mean, we can definitely, if this were to go on you know, multiple times throughout the series, let alone the entire night, then definitely we can look to try and, you know, at the LCK on social media and say, look, we've done you one better. But for the meantime, I suppose it is just that customary, you know, Oceanic Pools League. It's the custom pools that we need to endure, to get out the way, to keep the you know, the fans in Twitch chat wondering, what is going on? Casters, start the game. We can't start it. We're just staring at a screen. We're as stuck as you are. But I suppose bringing it back to the point one more time about top lane in particular, I think if you look at the most recent games, that has certainly been a case of saving it for Doraemon. I guess that is quite understandable when those last picks were the likes of a top tier for Camille and earlier as well. Makes a lot of sense. But, you know, that's already a known quantity now. And I'm still wondering what is left in top lane for them to try and, you know, unveil as that ace card.
Well, that's the thing. Top lane this patch hasn't really shown too much variance. I think Doraemon's actually been one of the players in the world to kind of push that envelope, whip out this Camille, Irelia, and TF back-to-back. You know, I think it really speaks to his ability and his confidence. You do have to be incredibly confident to pick something like that on stage. Now, the question to me is whether, A, he's going to be able to actually pick those champions in draft, whether it's going to allow it be a good spot for him, and B, is he actually going to be able to survive these laning phases? Because Why Not is a player who is very intelligent. He's very willing to kind of watch the opponents and gauge their weaknesses. And when you're playing a carry matchup, if the enemy jungler is constantly in your lane, you're not able to have the laning phase that you want. And then suddenly you're playing with an Irelia who's behind, you're playing with a Camille who's behind, and it doesn't feel anywhere near as good.
So it doesn't feel anywhere near as good as we do finally get ourselves back into the lobby and figure out what this Game 1 draft is going to look like. Thank you so much for bearing with us as we talked our way through all of that delay. Back to reminding you, it was that first pick for the Orianna. And the conversation that we had only a few minutes ago was, what does Jovi want to pick into this? Is it going to be the Azir, which is, generally speaking, suffered in our region in that 1v1? Or does he look to try and lock in some champion, be it the Akali or even the Yone, where he's shown that he's got those very aggressive tendencies? He just wants to lock this one in, make sure the rest of his team can get priority.
Feels like comfort here is the priority for Ion, right? The Varus in the hands of Nebula as well as Jovi on the Azir now. Like you said, this is a matchup that we've seen in our region be very Orianna favored, particularly towards the early game. Especially Hayri is going to feel incredibly comfortable in that 1v1. We've seen him against that Azir multiple times in the Orianna, kind of just having his way in the laning phase, pushing the enemy under turret and really not allowing much movement. Now, Jovi is someone who has been aggressive on the Azir, so perhaps this is a pick saying, okay, well, we're going to burn Hayri's flash early, we're going to repeatedly harass him with that Emperor's Divide. But we'll have to wait and see, as we do see the Nocturne coming out from Bliss, obviously allowing that very easy Orianna Nocturne combo to come through. Almost a guaranteed shockwave unless Flash is present, and a Senna to back it all up. So even more flexibility, more unpredictability down towards this bot lane for Team Bliss.
Certainly is, and it does really feel like the Orianna Nocturne is the go-to flavor of the month right now. It certainly has given them so much strength for a fairly easy to execute wombo combo. The only real counterplay, be it a form of mobility or a flash to disrupt that timer, but given it's got a much longer cooldown, that is not always the most reliable out. Into the second half of the ban phase then, Ion look to try and deny away not only the Nautilus, but the Seraphine, yet another one of those flexible champions. The Twisted Fate is still up and available, whilst Bliss do look to try and target Foreigner and remove two fantastic champions for him.
Yeah, and the Tahm Kench pick here from Hexflash is interesting. I think part of it's a denial from the bot lane of Bliss, obviously not wanting to give them that Senna Tahm pairing, but as well, you often see this Tahm picked with the on-hit Varus as opposed to the lethality Varus, right? So this is a Varus who's ideally meant to be DPSing, but against this Nocturne Orianna combo, you do have to wonder how much uptime he's actually going to be able to have and whether he's going to be able to find that. But speaking of the Sejuani that we have been talking about and hyping up so much all throughout the draft, it's going to be picked here for Foreigner. So now, this enables this 5P to come through from Doraemon, be it a carry, and have a really nice melee pairing. But it's actually going to be Cassante top and Ornn bot lane. We've seen this once before, didn't find much success, but Team Bliss hoping to flip the narrative on that and ensure that scaling win condition.
Yeah, they certainly will. I know you were quite critical of it, given the fact that Ornn is one of those champions that needs levels to really come online and offer those masterwork items to the rest of his team. If they're not coming on through, then you are really confused about the game state. That is a Viego as well as the Sejuani. And I tell you what, Max, if we wanted a bit of spice in Game 1, both teams have delivered.
Yes, they absolutely have. I'm actually a bit confused here as to what's going to be played in the top lane. I would assume it's going to be the Sejuani, just a more kind of regular pick up there, but Viego definitely a possibility, I think. Opting to save the 5P for jungle here is a little bit weird. I'm not sure that this is the most fantastic Viego game in terms of the setup that you're going to come through, in terms of the one-shot ability that you really have provided on the rest of your team. But Spice absolutely abundant here in the draft. You've got the Ornn here, who not only provides that scaling, but also the engage paired with that Nocturne and Orianna is going to be really hard to actually navigate, even with a Tahm Kench on the side of Ion. Whereas on the red side here, we do have this kind of enable Viego draft where you want to be playing around your top laner, you want to be taking those 2v2 skirmishes with the Sejuani, playing for the grubs, and accelerating your win con through that avenue.
And it's very interesting that we get a laning Sejuani. Feels like such a long time ago is when we did see it, and they went for a fairly aggressive rune setup, or rather, some of the choice, right? It was TP and Ignite from memory, and it certainly made you a phenomenal lane bully. Quite curious then, as to how you want to try and operate this, given the fact that I was sort of more mentioning it from a jungle standpoint, making it very easy for the Permafrost to then interact quite nicely with those melee laners. But in this instance, up into the Cassante, not a matchup that we've ever seen before.
No, and Sejuani top, something we haven't really seen much of this season, right? Obviously, it used to be a thing because of the solo kill potential it had, as well as just being a fantastic top laner in providing the engage that you want in team fights. Now, in terms of ease of execution, which is something that I did harp on about for Ion, they do have that pretty well secured, right? I think that having this Sejuani and Varus are both really easy options to start fights, and then you have the on-hit damage of both Anazir and Varus as the game goes on to really secure yourself, even against the tanky members of Team Bliss. But the big question to me, Skimmy, is are they going to be able to survive the initial engage? Because there are so many tools here from Team Bliss. I mean, basically every single member on this team can start a fight, can pull the trigger, and with all the experience they have, especially around objective setups, it makes for an incredibly scary prospect.
It certainly does make for an incredibly scary prospect, and to make matters worse and actually become a little bit curious, the last time we saw this was in the playoffs in 2022, and would you believe it, Sejuani top was played by Biopen. But that's his opponent tonight, Doraemon. He's got himself an uphill task, but he wants to continue to innovate to keep you, the viewers at home, entertained and showcase that yes, we might be the 4th seed. We've got a lot to prove. It's our first best of 3 as the LCO playoffs. They start now.
Long road ahead of us here. Long road for both of these teams heading into today's game. The very first game of what is a long week ahead. And you can see across the board, nothing too out of the ordinary in terms of rune choices. Nebula opting for the Ghost and Lethal Tempo, so confirming he is going for that on-hit variant. Really wants to provide uptime and really take down this Cassante and Ornn, which is going to be a tough challenge. Scott himself opting for the Spellbook, which is something you typically see in Ornn matchups where he's not able to proc something out of the Resolve tree very often. Just enables a little bit more kill threat, especially once you tick that level 6, you know, you take Ignite, and you really do have some kill potential down in towards that bot lane. But so far, standard level 1's just going to be a fan here. It's going to be Foreigner working his way down towards this bot lane. I mean, yes, the Viego wants to pair with Sejuani, but I think for your first clear, you'd much rather get down towards this bot lane and really enable Nebula to push and play this lane as he would like.
You certainly would. You want to make sure that your lanes start off strong, and that certainly has been a common trend here for the side of Bliss, and very much why a lot of you at home also believe that they should take the icing on the cake here. 96% feeling that Bliss will take this one. And, well, given really what we're seeing from these drafts, doesn't look like that's going to change any time soon. I'm quite curious. We've already seen other supports in the region. I believe it was Findo that showcased us on the Nautilus with the TP. Just how much value you can offer with a triple TP setup. You can cover all those lanes and never really be put in a position where you're trading.
That's what makes, you know, Bliss so scary, is their macro play. So having an extra TP to cover a dive, whether that be top lane or mid, or even just to get back to lane after he gets harassed out of it, really kind of diminishes the windows where you're able to attack them here. You know, even if you do get a good trade, you burn some summons on the bot lane, suddenly this Ornn is back in lane, full HP to catch the wave. So we can see Iron in the bot lane. They do have the push, as is standard with this Varus Time Kench. Both supports actually opting to go the support item level 1, which feels like something we haven't seen in a bunch of games. Often the supports are valuing that extra combat power you can get from a Doran's item. But even with that pickup, they will still be able to secure the level 1 priority. And with one not pathing top lane, looks like they'll actually be able to get the shove in here nice and early on. But look at mid lane. I mean, Harry on this Orianna. Talk about being a nightmare to lane against. Jovi is about 200 HP. Both pots gone. And a stacking wave here, Skimmy.
Yeah, it's absolutely brutal here. I mean, every single time you step up to the wave, you're risking not only your life, but all that CS being lost in the process. And Foreigner's being told, get to mid pronto, because I'm absolutely screwed. I've got to go away from this wave, have all this denied, and then TP instantly back and hope that I can salvage at least something. But this is a point we already mentioned, right? If you look in the Orianna, we've seen time and time again, they just outright bully you.
And he TP's back, but he actually misses so much, right? Because he has to wait in base to heal up before he can come back and get those CS. And since there was no cannon minion, it's going to mean that he's down a significant portion of CS. And Hayri is going to use that TP back as well. This is something that I love about Hayri, is how he constantly wants to keep punishing you in lane. I mean, he could have saved the TP back, walked back, and had that TP advantage. But he favors his stronger buy. He favors his laning position above basically everything in the game. And he's going to use that TP to get back to lane and continue putting the pressure on towards Jovi here.
Speaking of that mid lane, speaking of the junglers in particular as well, we've certainly seen a handful of times where Nocturne gets aggressive pre-6 to try and lay a trap and guarantee a kill, but more often than not, it is a case of rushing to level 6 as quickly as you can, and certainly when you've got such a dominant combo like that of the Shockwave and the Paranoia to pair alongside it, you don't need to take any crazy risks anytime, anywhere soon, given that you've got a Cassante that's just going to passively farm up those grass procs. You've got a Center and Ornn that just want to scale in their own right too, and no doubt will just be biding their time, waiting for those objectives before they find their time to strike.
And it's interesting, right, because scaling is obviously very relevant this game for both teams. I wouldn't say that either team has kind of a clear-cut advantage because, you know, whilst you do have this Center Ornn Orianna combo, on the other hand, you have Azir and Varus, who are two of the strongest champions in their roles. I think that more so than anything, it's kind of the experience gap in terms of games played that favors Team Bliss in a late game situation, right? How many games have we seen them be in these late game macro situations and just be able to work their way out of it because of their game knowledge, because of their understanding? And I think that that's something that they're really favoring. As we can see up here, one is going to get started on the grubs here. So picking these up early is quite nice, you know, obviously leveraging that mid lane priority. But also, it denies that link up between Foreigner and Doraemon, right? Once you have that Sejuani with Ignite, paired with the Viego, can be very scary as a mid-jungle to actually want to fight that. But it's just going to be a trade here. The Dragon going to be taken down by Ion. And as for the lanes, not too much going on. Only 400 gold separating the teams here.
Yeah, nice and passive. Very much the calm before the storm, if you will. Certainly a common trend we've seen over the years of the LCO, where teams look to try and just ease their way into a series. Game 1, a case of really settling those nerves, but by Game 2 and Game 3, the team has certainly found themselves enough of an advantage. It is all on like Donkey Kong, just like that. First blood for Harry. Orianna, it's online.
That's why you don't give Harry Orianna there, right? Just ticks the level 6, pops the Shockwave, and picks up the easiest solo kill of his life here. Jovi, no TP either, so he'll be forced to walk back to lane. And this was a matchup that Jovi opted into. He picked the Azir into Harry's Orianna first pick, and you can already see that he might be regretting that choice. Down 20 CS and a first blood.
Certainly is, and we know what he can do once he gets a bit of a sniff of an advantage. It only goes from bad to worse, no doubt. Makes it very easy then for somebody like Why Not to then capitalize on that as well. You can see he's worked his way into a lane gank, but completely spotted on that Tribush ward. You'd expect to see then both Nebula and Hexflash respect this one and look to try and take too many aggro trades. But just looking to try and waste his time as the sweeper does come out at the very end there. And make sure that his entire time down in the bot lane isn't all in vain. But Foreigner, here just to match. May just see if Bliss look to try and get aggressive.
Yeah, Foreigner does have a level 6, whereas Wano is about one camp off from getting that himself. So ultimate advantage would be going in the favor of Ion. But I think really it's just showing how much this team's valuing, even just existing around the lanes, right? That enables, you could see Barlet and Scott there to play much more aggressively than they would have otherwise. And now they're going to actually flip the push. Instead of this being a slow push into them, they're able to push this and then rotate up to either get some vision or continue their harass. And you know, we talk about the scaling of this lane, but Skimmy, they're not playing this like it's a scaling pick at all. They're playing it like it's a lane bully, and it is working oh so well for them.
There certainly is. I mean, in terms of two champions that want to get to max level as quickly as they can, one for the stats that can be gained from picking up these silver spectral bullets, those souls that you certainly need to become an absolute menace, and for the Ornn too, wanting to dish out all the goods and goss to the rest of his team. They're the ones taking full advantage of this lane, and the ones that are also making sure that this Varus is unable to really run rampant. And yes, it's not going to be the lethality route, it's going to be the Ghost Flash lethal tempo on hit Varus, not to be paired alongside an Enchanter like we've commonly seen, be it the Renata, but with the protection tools of a Devour from that Tahm Kench. I think really what we're looking for the side of Ion is this link up, as you've already mentioned, between the likes of a Sejuani and Viego, because those two together, it's CC into so much damage.
But they're just having to walk mid to try to break Jovi out of this deadlock, which is really not what you wanting to be using that early power to get, right? You can see 30 CS now is the lead for Hayri in this mid lane, and he was doing a very nice job of having his ball placed really far up the lane. So essentially, anytime Jovi moved up, he would have been tanking a QW from Orianna. And, you know, with the Comet coming through, with that kind of poke build that he's opted for in the runes, there's certainly no missteps to be had, because with his TP still on cooldown, any time he's pushed out of lane is a really significant downside for him. So keep an eye on this mid lane to see how they're able to navigate this. 1,000 is the goal lead, and a wager. Basically, all of that is existing in this mid lane. There's both teams here. Why Not does have that level 6, level 7 in fact online here. So if there's any time potentially to get active, it is right now. Violet will be spotted on this ward though, and Wynot will just back off for the time being. So, you know, whilst these junglers have been incredibly active in terms of showing their faces bot lane, not a single kill has taken place on this bot side of the map.
Yeah, nothing's really involved them this early on, right? They've certainly tried, but the laners have denied them of multiple chances for that to occur. You can see Harry really being a menace in this lane, as both their TPs are synced up with one another to make sure that they can really match at any given state. But not enough pressure, not enough opportunity for them to really find an advantage. Harry might just look to try and drop the shockwave as soon as he rocks up into this lane, because he's got a massive wave to crash. But he'll settle for just getting a tower plate.
He'll get the turret plate, and what that mid lane priority is going to open up is it's actually scooped back.
Yes, being scooped back. He's going to cop one, nearly two turret shots. It's not ramped up, so he's lucky in this occasion. But Fono's going to loop around, looking to try and take him out. He's held onto his flash. More importantly, Wynot has said, you know what? You can get out of this situation, because I've got more important things to do. I'm going to get all 6 of these Void Grubs. And would you believe it? Harry just walks away.
I cannot believe he manages to just walk out of that play here. It's the last Void Grub is going to be taken here by Wynot as well. So it looked like a nice capitalization there from Jovi. Uses the TP to get back and scoop Harry under that turret, but he's just going to be able to walk out there. Plain and simple, isn't enough damage presence on this Azir to actually threaten the kill onto Ori. And so Harry will just be able to use his own TP back here and get back to lane safely. And meanwhile, like you mentioned, it's going to be all 6 Void Grubs taken incredibly early as well here, right? Still a full 3 minutes to go before platings fall. So just exacerbating this already huge laning difference we've seen here in this mid lane.
And is it greedy or is it calculated? Either way, it's worked in their favor. Harry still has that flash. They've got the sieging power too. And they've got double ultimates online to contest this second dragon that has spawned. It's going to be an Ocean Drake up for grabs as the vision does get moved from top to bot. And these top laners get a little bit more aggressive now. Looking to try and find more and more of those grass stacks online. TP's already been burnt by Bio, so you wouldn't imagine he's wanting to really group up with the rest of his team. But Doranmonster is going to be up in about 15 seconds. Whether or not that's an invitation then for Iron to try and contest.
He will have the option to use it, but Bio's playing the lane really intelligently, right? He's just shoving the lane permanently, making it so that if Doraemon does want to TP down, he will have to lose some waves as the cost. But it looks like this dragon is burning so quickly, he won't even have the chance to do it. You can see Team Bliss here. Scott is just too tanky at this stage for anyone to really actually pressure him. Means that it will just be this second dragon going over to the hands of Bliss here. And checking back in with mid lane here, you can see it's just a brutal affair. And this mid lane control really spills over into the rest of the map here as Harry. You might find him if he cues this bush.
Yeah, Jovi though realizing that he's on the hunt. Gotta be careful though, Harry, because he might bite off more than he can chew. His Rona's gonna come out the shadows, look to land that stun. He's got the damage to try and get that one shot. He just needs to get a range for the Heartbreaker. There it is, shockwave on his head, but 1 or 2 do it, the shield! It's not enough! And all that aggression finally gets punished.
This time the confidence is answered. Foreigner finding a nice little kill there, saving the ultimate after Hayuri flashes to be able to continue to close that distance and pick up the kill there. So we mentioned it earlier how Foreigner can be that consistent performer, even in a carry role, and really threaten the members of Bliss. That one kill will certainly do wonders for him, as well as easing pressure on that mid lane, right? It enables Jovi to get a nice base off there, as Biped is actually looking onto Doraemon here. There's no flash to Sejuani.
He's looking to get all aggressive right now as the Ignite gets used during that all-out mode. But he holds his own with the Glacial Prison, doesn't want to commit to it anytime soon. He doesn't have kill pressure, and he certainly wouldn't want to waste it, knowing that Fauna is resetting and making his way top. He's got a Kraken Slayer, so look, that mid-top, or rather, that top jungle, I should say, is incredibly strong. They have a full item advantage over the counterparts.
Yeah, and it was a nice play out of both top laners there, actually. Vilepanther trying to bait Doraemon into continuing to chase him, knowing that Wynot was in the area with that Paranoia active, which we haven't seen actually be used this game as so far. As Doraemon once again looking to get active, looking to pair up with Foreigner, but they haven't been able to find anything yet. Now, the question is, 40 seconds on the Rift Herald. We've seen Ion actually be very active in terms of being able to contest this objective, and they really place immense priority on getting this one done. So will that item advantage that you mentioned actually be the deciding factor, as now Wynot's picked up that Hex Plate, providing so much utility and so much synergy with his kit, really enabling basically every objective fight to be paired with a Paranoia. As you can see, resets will come through here from Ion in the bot lane, trying to defend these camps here, not allowing any moment for Wynot to expand this jungle lead here.
Yeah, and as you say, that brief window in which Ion's top jungle had an advantage, that is dissipated now because the X-Blade is there. The Sunfire's being picked up by Bio, and they now certainly are on even footing. And I would say that this bot lane for Bliss, yes, they are that scaling pairing, but they're incredibly strong too with the opportunity in the Bloodsong for the center. Whilst they aren't picking up any of the CS, they are just getting those souls. Yeah, Violet is going to pack a major punch.
It feels really fast for Violet to get opportunity online here. Without any kills, you assume that the gold that he's purchased this with has just come from either the souls, a little bit of CS he's picked up, as well as the turret planings towards that bot lane. But yeah, this Sun is very, very threatening at this stage, right? The Bloodsong does so much damage, and combined with that lethality item, you're actually really able to put a lot of pressure onto the squishy members here as one. They did see him get into this bush from the blast cone. Almost like a reaction check as to whether he can W in time, but Harry's going to check.
Yeah, that's the ultimate savior, isn't it? The face check with that orb. And making sure that no funny business, no cheeky cheese bush tactics are going to take place. We're at the 15-minute mark. It's not the most gold lead that we've seen from Bliss, but they are still ahead, and they are looking to try and push their agenda as Jovi goes in with that Empress Divide, but instantly gets punished upon as they go in with the Paranoia, layer with the Shockwave, and those two that we said are strong, they're the beneficiaries. They've now found a kill each.
Ion, they had an idea, but Bliss had a better one. You can see they brought 3 members to the mid lane, thinking a play was going to happen, and they answer perfectly. The second that Jovi dives in, they're able to collapse with the Nocturne ult, pairing it with the Shockwave, hitting both Foreigner and Jovi, and now that Herald, which we know Ion love and prize, will go over as a result. But we can take a look once again here, so you can see Jovi wants to get this scoop, but literally the second he goes in, both Violet and Why Not appear, and that is your absolute worst nightmare as an Azir. And the Viego, who's jumped in to follow him, will fall down as well. So mid lane turret, 2 kills and a Rift Herald, 3,000 gold, comfortably in the lead for Team Bliss.
It's instant regret, isn't it? As soon as you jump and you think, I've made a mistake here, and there's no way of getting yourself out of that slippery situation. As you say, as a result, it does mean that Harry sits alone, top of the table. They're not too far behind his Panther. That has definitely kept this quirky Sejuani pick under wraps for the meantime. No real chance for Doraemon to link up with that jungler or, deploy his attention elsewhere with a clever Unleashed TP to assist. It will be Bliss just cruising their way through this one. They've managed to pick up the Rift Herald as well. They've already broken through that mid-tier 1. They've opened up all these avenues of attack. And look at the vision linking both mid and top. It makes it so difficult then for Foreigner to try and threaten.
Yeah, it's just the easiest walkway ever here for Harry if he wants to get down and get himself into a better position for this Dragon. Now, we can see it. This is spawning. Doraemon has walked down from top lane. So while Panther's breaking that turret, he will have first access here. Will the top laner of Ion. So burning this down nice and early. Harry's still on mid lane. I think they might be giving this over, Skimmy. Yeah,
they don't seem to be too interested, and this is a classic trend, isn't it? Where you got those 6 Void Grubs, you just look to try and out-macro. If you over-invest in that Dragon, you will get punished as a result. Call of the Forge Gold layer with the Paranoia. The lights go out, the Shockwave connects, and 2 people get locked in place. They're still searching for that very first kill, and the exhaust is not enough to shut this Nocturne down. He provides, he gets a kill, and look at Violet. He's found himself a second.
You can run all you want, but you cannot hide from Team Bliss. The chase down there using so many ultimates, but ultimately they do come out with those 2 kills. And this is kind of the problem here with the Tahm Kench. I mean, yes, you have that Devour, but does it really matter when you're getting hit by this AoE CC? You're able to be chain CC once you are spat out of that Tahm Kench R as well. And Team Bliss, it feels like every single game they play, their macro reads are just exceptional. And that nice little pincer movement on the back end of that Dragon play is nothing but. And we can see once again how this play starts here. They catch out Nebula, use the Aura and the Paranoia. It's a nice Devour to block that initial damage, but look at the Shockwave out of it, right? The CC still lands, and so does the damage. And that means that crucially, even though they create distance, the Ion bot lane are not able to escape with their lives here. So 5,000 will be the lead. Yes, you secure that second Dragon, but really, Team Bliss in a pretty nice spot as Why Not just loses the Scuttle Crab.
Yeah.
But once again, we're eking closer towards this Baron. Losing your bot lane there might not mean much, but as you do get towards this 20-minute mark, a similar pick could really be the nail in the coffin.
The thing for me, Max, is the sort of awkwardness around that play when we watch the replays that Jovi TP's top lane as soon as that fight breaks out. So it feels like there's a bit of a disconnect already between the comms of Ion as to what are we actually doing here. They want the dragon, they want to run away, but Bliss forced them to stay engaged to offer them more uptime on those towers. Here we go for another team fight though. The focus clearly shut this Orianna down. Harry the focus, but he looks to try and peel away. The Shockwave's massive onto free, but why not does die? The last one, as you say, getting denied and Violet under threat, and now it's going to fall on down. 2 shutdown found by the Tom Ketch. Not the ideal target, but they'll take what they can get. Rocking up is Scott as he knocks up 2 with that call of the Forge God, and Biopenther ripping back onto Nebula, who receives the devour and is running for the hills now with that shield. And he might be okay, but the slow is there, the damage is found, and the vision is enough to offer them uptime that he's eventually, you be the next one, falling on Dad in this fight.
2 picks going in favor of Ion early there, but the damage on the back end of the fight simply isn't there. These Varus and Azir have nowhere near the DPS you need them to have to actually be able to get through someone like this Cassante in those extended altercations. And we'll have to take a look back at how this all starts, because it's Why Not and Violet fishing for a little pick onto Foreigner here. This Viego does a lot of damage, but isn't too tanky. And the play gets turned around onto Harry. It's a fantastic shockwave, but there's the blast cone I was talking about. Puts Violet into the middle of no man's land to be taken down by the Tahm Kench. But look at Biopanther here. Not only does he play this very well mechanically, using his Q3 onto the Varus, who doesn't have those summon spells available, to try to take him down before the fight even starts. You can see that even with the Nazir DPSing through this entire fight, there simply isn't enough damage. And that's the problem here with Jovi, is what is this Nazir doing to this Ornn and Cassante? And right now, the answer's not much.
Not much at this stage, yeah. Has lost lane pretty hard, and it's definitely made sure that Harry flourishes as a result. As we return back to live, and we see that under threat becomes Biopenther, but an instant TP comes out from Scott. And that's the luxury of running the spellbook as that Ornn support. You can just instantly say that fight, that play, that little chance to try and capitalize in these side lanes, instantly extinguish it.
I have no idea if they even kill him there, to be honest. This Cassante is so tanky in the face of Team Ion, especially without that Varus there to actually take him down with that % health damage. And that TP play is going to result in a nice little Herald summon here. So you have to imagine this first one will drop quite easily. I don't even know, I think it's the most Void Bites I've ever seen on a screen at once. But Ion will deny the second charge here. So nice little injection of gold here as Bliss kind of continually stretch out this gold advantage. 6,000 is it now. And you can see the vision that they've dropped in the bot side here. Pink Ward's covering basically every single entrance into this from the side of Ion. With the Chemtech Dragon spawning in 30 minutes, Bliss certainly have asserted themselves on the bottom side of that map.
Yeah, as you say, that bottom half, linking what mid and bot, just becomes impossible for Ion to try and go undetected. Very difficult now for them to try and sneak in that dragon, which is spawning in 20 seconds, and certainly they would love to try and go for that one, given that they're looking to try and play for that soul point. A phenomenal Devour denies the instant one-shot into Nebula, but as he comes out, he gets knocked up by the Ornn. Easy 2 kills to start off the fight here in favor of Team Bliss, and every single time, Max, it's perfect. There is no trade. It is simply a winning situation.
Devour all you want there from the side of Ion. They will still find the kills, and off the back end of that, it will be a Baron as well. So plain and simple, Team Bliss, they do the vision, they do the prep work nicely, and they set themselves up on mid lane. They know they have the numbers advantage because Jovi is pushing topside, and they are so quick to pull the trigger. It's the Ornn horn that sounded, and it sounds like it will be the sound of defeat as well here for Ion. As yes, they trade back the Dragon, but it's a Baron and an 8,000 gold lead going to the boys in pink.
Yeah, let's run it back with this replay once again. You can see everybody converging on mid lane for that priority, but it's as simple as that. Fantastic Devour to deny that instant one-shot, but it's just too many layers of CC. If it's not the Ornn knock-up, it's the center chains, and by that point, you're left without any real avenue to provide a chance back into this one. And I think we talked earlier about the scaling condition, but for Bliss, they're playing as if they're an early game comp.
Well, I mean, right now, it's kind of that sweet spot where they're both a scaling comp with a fantastically big gold lead as well, so they kind of have the best of both worlds at this stage. As you can see, they're going to set up with Scott in the mid lane here, so he's basically just existing to Baron up these waves, make them a little bit harder for Ion to push out, as the rest of his team does group. Now they're going to switch this over, put Wano in the mid lane who has that paranoia to be able to join any potential fight. So you can see them now, they're syncing these waves, wanting to make sure that these minions are crushing into the turret at the same time in both mid and bot. And right now, how do you actually start a fight as Ion? Even your Sejuani, who is the tanky member, is going to fall down so quickly to all these items on Team Bliss. And Plain and simple. They're just going to crack it, and here goes Why Not.
Instantly jumping into the backline, guaranteeing that they will find at least one inhibitor in this siege attempt. They've got the Baron. You thought the siege attempt was good before, but look at the shockwave onto 2. Once again, the Devourer's clutch. The Emperor's Divide shoving back 3. But Jovi once again can't do much more than just that. They are just too far behind. And all that layer of CC that Iron can look to try and dish out is just not enough. Biopaver taking down that flanking Sejuani. Foreigner running for the hills, but the Dawning Shadow smashing him down.
Just brutal there from the side of Bliss. They find the initial shockwave from Harry onto 2 members, blowing up the bot lane of Ion, who really haven't had a chance to play this game whatsoever. And at only 24 minutes, there's still the Baron online for another minute. They're looking at Nebula, but he will get out. I'm not sure the same can be said about their Nexus, though.
They're going to end the game right here now. They have so much sieging potential. Void Might's Baron buff, 5k Baron play, and at 25 minutes in, they say, you think you want to try and upset us? You're going to have to try and do something a little bit more creative in game number 2. Just like that, the favorites, the first seeds in Bliss, take down game number 1.
We thought this game was going to be one-sided, this series was going to be one-sided, and if that first showing is anything to go off, it is certainly looking to continue that way. Bliss, especially Harry, that man on your screen right now, having an absolutely stellar performance and continuing this winning form. And Skimmy, how do you actually beat this team?
That is the overarching question right now. A team built to scale and a team that won despite needing time to do just that. Back to the drawing board for Ion as we jump to a break and get ready for game number 2.